Good morning. I am Carmen Palo. I am the Worldwide Commercial and Public Sector Marketing Director for Amazon Business, and I am so thrilled to have Candy Castleberry here with us today. We've got, I think, a lot that we can talk about. We've been able to talk through this the last couple of weeks, and I'm excited to share all of this with everybody today.
I'm excited to be here with all of you. You all need a little more energy than what I've seen you have thus far, but we'll just keep it going.
We'll get it going. We'll get it going for them. All right, so there was one line. That's a great video, first of all. We've have a couple that we've seen already so far. That was a great one, and sounded a little familiar in that voice. Was that you?
Together. Walk together, learn together. That's me.
In it together. Here we are. Well, that was great. There was one line in the video that really stood out to me. And I asked them to print it for me because I wanted to get it right. And the line is, our company connects the world together like no other by breaking down barriers and creating innovations and delivering experiences that advance culture, information, business, communities, and it's the people of Amazon that make it real. That's a lot in that statement. There's a lot there. So I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that, and thinking about that and how we do that. What is the link between how we look at DEI at Amazon and how that gives us the ability to achieve business outcomes?
Okay, so when I sit at the front of my seat, that means I'm going to say something. I need you all to be happy you're here in this room. I feel incredibly blessed to be at Amazon and to follow a conversation on AI. Because as a part of an organization of our size, we have a leadership principle that says success and scale bring broad responsibility. And DEI has to be embedded into the full strategy as you think about all the things you'll hear over this next couple of days. For us, we actually look at DEI as a progression. And probably the way you think of DEI might be what we would call bolted on. And bolted on, and for this example, I'll just stick with a basic example of you have a system. The system isn't producing the diversity outcome that you want, so you build a program. So let's just say you want to hire more veterans. Any veterans in the house? Let's see. No veterans? All right. Shout out to all the veterans. So imagine that the goal is to hire more veterans. Today, the way that the industry delivers more veterans in the outcome of the hiring process is they build a program. So you set a program on top of the system. And if you want more women, women in science, Black, Latino, whatever the demographic group, we set a program on top of the system. I call that bolted on. By the way, it is the way that the industry has delivered, has been rewarded, and it's oftentimes, when you think about, when you hear of it, this is probably the kind of thing that comes to your mind. The second body of work is what we would call built in. And built in is our ability to take that system without a program being built on, and that the system itself produces the outcome of more veterans. So that might mean that we have to help the people who are delivering the product or rebuild or modify the product so that it has the outcome that you want. And the thing that probably most excites me, because Amazon is uniquely positioned because of the size of our organization, because we are also the builders of technology, we also are uniquely positioned to think about products that have not been deployed. And what is the architecture and what kind of influence do we need to have on the design so that the future product, the one that hasn't been built, the one that isn't out in the world, actually delivers the outcome. Now, as you all probably know, diversity has been around longer than us and hopefully will continue to be around in whatever ways. But it's an amazing opportunity to work at Amazon and a company that's committed to thinking about how it just becomes a part of everything we do, from bolted on, built in, and born inclusive, and not just for employees, but also for customers. All right, thank you. All right.
I think that's great, and I love this concept of thinking about it in the progression from bolted on to built-in to born inclusive. Too often, it's true that we leave these DEI initiatives in the HR room or, with that department, we put that on them, and it's not inherent in everything we do. And so I think, how do we think about then in product development? And as we're thinking about how we build products, how do we think about that born inclusive?
Yeah, I think that most people probably do think of diversity as, I gave an HR example because I knew what was coming up next. So the thing that I think is important is for us to think about it not just being about how we think about product, but also how we think about how we build and create experiences for customers and ultimately for the community. And I think the best way to describe how we're integrating it into products is to show another video.
How do you become the Earth's most customer-centric company? By thinking about ways to serve all of your customers. And since 1 in every 5 people has a disability, you'd want to make your products and services accessible. You might start with small things that make a big difference. You could even invent things to make life a little easier.
Alexa, what am I holding?
You'd make binge watching not just watchable, but listenable.
Boss arrives at the crime scene.
And you design your tablets and e-readers to be adaptable, which would mean hiring experts who actually use these features. Oh, here's an idea.
Alexa, open the blinds.
Okay, you could make your products affordable. And if you accomplished all this, you'd be honest that there's still a lot more you could do for your customers, especially customers with disabilities. And then you'd get back to work.
So I have a couple of questions about technology and accessibility, but can you give us a little bit, kind of your thoughts on how Amazon is bringing DEI and the born inclusive into some of these products for accessibility that we just saw?
The thing that I would emphasize is, obviously you saw just a snapshot of the products, but in order for something to be born inclusive, it requires lots of collaboration. The thing that I am probably the most excited about is that not only can we deliver accessible products at scale, but there's also a point where you can't have enough diversity in every room, right? And so if you want to build a product for another geography, for a different generation, you want to build a product for, different gender identity, race, ethnicity, faith, when you start to think about just the complexity of trying to serve a diverse world, the advantage that AI gives us is that if we build a standard that's born inclusive, that says, here's the things you need to consider before the product is built, then you don't need to have all of us look at it before, because we've already created the standard for what a product should look like on the outcome. It's no different than when you think about the products that you build, or even when you have a business outcome, you decide this is what revenue I want to make, or this is what I want the product to do, this is what I want the product to say, how I want it to operate. And so if you think about what born inclusive is, it's really saying, I want to do all those things, but I want there to be a lens on the front that ensures that we don't have to put a bolted-on product or program on the product once it's built because it inadvertently didn't include, right? Or we didn't think about that. The other thing that I think is so incredibly amazing about AI, and I'm not confused that there is equally as much concern as there is hope, right, of doing this at scale, is that if you create the standards, you put it in front of a way that the product is built, not only can you do it at scale, but you can serve more people than the person who's actually building it. You can serve more demographics than the person who actually created the design. And it actually gives us a way, and again, Amazon is uniquely positioned because we have products both for employees and for customers. And so when I think about this, it is the thing that probably excites me, and it distinguishes the work that we're doing at Amazon from probably any other company that you might have this conversation with.
Great, thank you for that. I know AI is kind of the hot topic now, and it gets a little bit, can you go too far one way? And we hear a lot about the negative in it, but it is interesting to see how we can kind of flip that conversation and really look at it from a perspective of what can we do to bring things that are going to better what we do, better our products, better the communities that we're serving in as well.
Yes.
That's great. Okay, so I know that we've talked a lot here. We've talked a lot about Born Inclusive. What are some key takeaways or maybe key first steps that when you're talking to an audience this size that's so vast, how can we start thinking about these things to start implementing these things in our workplaces?
So I used to teach at Carnegie Mellon for about 5 years. And the interesting thing was, I think when people entered the class, they probably expected perhaps what you thought we were going to talk about, like how many more of these people can we hire, of this demographic group and this demographic. And really, their capstone project was, what is possible if you think about the product that you already have, if you wanted to serve a different geography? Take that same product and what approach, what learning, what mechanism would you need to actually scale this product to serve a different country, or to speak in a different language, or a different generation? And I think that, I wasn't planning to talk about this, so I'll just only put a pin in this, that I do think that generations is a demographic that we definitely need to pay more attention to. Because sometimes we see the world through the lens. I could give you many examples. I was talking to my nephew, and I was saying something about a record, and my nephew said, "What is a record?" And I always have this conversation where I'm using examples that are in my own head, of my own experience, and you could easily do that by a demographic, but generations is something we should pay a lot of attention to. But the point that I would make is that the things that my students were able to produce was because they made the time to think about how they could be more inclusive in a product that they were already delivering. And whether it was generational, whether it was an accessible product, or creating greater accessibility, or serving a different demographic or gender identity, or even faith, the interesting thing was that it showed that they were capable of doing it. And the reason it hadn't been happening is because they either hadn't been asked or they hadn't thought about it. So I'd ask you all to think about that. Because the thing that I would say is that people who have diversity, equity, and inclusion, or like me, a title of creating inclusive experiences in technology, I don't have some unique superpower that enables me to do what we can't all do. So this challenge that I would give to you is to think about what your commitment is to serving the world. And whether that's a world of employees, whether that is a world of who you're going to build a product for. The other thing that I would tell you, so that's the first thing, is do your part, right? Think about what you can do to create an inclusive experience for people, whoever your products serve. The second thing that I would say is to make a new friend. Now, this is an interesting thing to say, make a new friend, because the idea of making a new friend is having someone who can give you a slightly different perspective. And I would always say, don't move forward until you have at least one or two different perspectives. Because it's not that you're going to do something different. It does mean that you're more informed on the approach that you're going to take to doing the thing that you were already going to do. And being informed about how someone may react to a thing that you're building, a product, a service that you're going to deploy, only helps you to either get more customers or know what customers you will be missing if you don't take a broader approach. The other is I would say that, we have to do the most with the time that we have. Here's the thing that I would say. There's so many things going on in the world that I just am so inspired when I come to an event such as this, where there's an opportunity for us to think about not just what we do, but what we can do together. So imagine the possibilities of reaching out to someone who is like you and unlike you, and thinking about the possibilities of what not only we are doing at Amazon, but how you as partners in our progress and work together. I'll ask you a question. And this is the thing that sort of inspires me and sometimes grounds me and reminds me of why I do what I do. I'll ask you, if you can, to raise your hand. Raise your hand if you believe that you deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Raise your hand. Yes, if you can. All right, I see. All right. The second question that I ask is to raise your hand if you think about that in all that you do, in your leadership, the way that you interact with your employees, the way that you talk about things with your customers, and even the way that perhaps you experience someone who might just be the barista who gave you that Starbucks coffee today. And here's the question I would ask. But before you answer, I want you to think about something. I'm going to ask you the question to raise your hand if you believe you treat everyone who you interact with dignity and respect. And then I'm going to remind you of that person who cut you off on the way here. That person who saw you when you got ready to get on the elevator and let the door close in your face. That perhaps the person who gave you the wrong cup of coffee first. I wasn't there, so I don't know if that was right? But think about it. And then I want you, because some of you know each other, I want you to raise your hand if you believe you treat everyone you interact with. Now I want you to raise your hand if you can, if you treat everyone you interact with dignity and respect. And some people are honest. They're like, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. And somebody in here raised their hand and somebody knows them and said, you shouldn't raise your hand. Because here's the point. If we truly want to build products and services that serve the world, it's not first the AI, it's first the people, and then it's the AI. So even though I'm really excited about this idea of expanding where Amazon is uniquely positioned to deliver products and services that not only serve our employees in an inclusive way, but that create an experience for our employees around the world, I also know it starts with people, and it starts with people just like you. So we should all do our part, think about the things that we can do to make new friends, to think about how we get a different perspective, and to always think about the interaction that you're having with others. And if the thing that we're doing would allow us to raise our hand the next time we're in a room together. That's all I have to say about that.
Good takeaway. Thank you. Thank you. I think there was a lot, coming into this, I'm assuming, as we look around the room, people thought, to your point, that we would be talking about something different, but I think there's a lot of small and big takeaways in this. We're doing some big things at Amazon, but every day we all can do small things to drive this forward and to drive getting to that born inclusive part of the framework. So I appreciate it. I hope everybody has some good nuggets to take away, to take back, to start asking yourself, asking your coworkers, asking your families how we all interact together and how we can engage to drive all of this forward. So thank you so much, Candy. It's been a pleasure. Thank you all for listening to us. We hope you have a great rest of your conference, and I will welcome Todd back up to the stage.
Thank you.
Thank you.